And what's this? It's the Porsche. The Porsche is slowing. It's Klaus Ludwig.
It could be anything to do with the fact that he was going so hard and using so much fuel.
We could have a situation where Ludwig has stayed out perhaps one lap too many, and he may very well be out of fuel now. He's a small pocket-sized battleship, but you know, Hans Stuck and Derek Bell are very much bigger chaps, and I wouldn't want to be telling them about it, not even over the radio.
Anybody that gets to drive these or own one is so fortunate. There's no car that was better. It was just very, very special.
Derek, welcome to Fiskins. We know each other pretty well.
Just a little.
First confession, you are my hero.
Oh, get it.
Absolutely. I didn't meet you, but I saw you at Le Mans when, I think it was the last time you raced at Le Mans, which was in the Kramer Spider.
Oh, right,
yeah,
yes.
With Robin Donovan.
That's right. And I thought it was a lovely car. I always liked open cockpit. It's funny, isn't it? I felt more at ease in an open cockpit car, even if you got a bit of buffeting going on.
I believe you're the most successful Le Mans driver of all time, most successful British Le Mans driver.
Oh, well, yeah, that might be right.
So that's five Le Mans wins out of 25 appearances,
yes,
which is a pretty good average.
It is. I drove every year, apart from '84 when Porsche had fallen out with the ACO of a fuel management thing. So I wasn't allowed to go to Le Mans that year.
But the golden era was for Porsche.
Yes.
Probably we'd have to say the golden era was the Group C era,
yes,
and the 962, or the previous to that, the 956.
Yes.
And you survived the 917.
Yes.
Which must have been incredible. I think that was probably as fast as you went at Le Mans.
Yes, it was. I think nobody ever went the same speed. Only the factory drivers, and the ones that, well, there were only 4 of us. We went 3 in each car. So only me, Rodriguez, Siffert, and Jackie Oliver actually did those speeds of 246 miles an hour.
Yeah. So when you came to Le Mans in 1988, in the number 1 car, chassis 10,
yes,
driving with Stuck and Klaus Ludwig.
Hello and welcome to Le Mans 1988. This is probably the most important Le Mans that has taken place for a very long time.
Definitely the number 1 car,
yes,
which was a new car,
yes,
built by Porsche for that year's Le Mans.
Yeah.
Expectations must have been high, because I think by then you were a 5-time Le Mans winner.
Yeah.
I think your co-drivers had won Le Mans multiple times. You
yeah,
were definitely the most decorated crew.
Yeah.
But this was the Le Mans that didn't quite come your way.
Yeah, well, you know, it was fair really that somebody else should win it. But it was disappointing because I actually, at that level, I mean, you say, you know, with Robin Donovan, there were 3 drivers and so on and a few races. But generally speaking, we always drove just with 2. And I remember saying, you know, I remember Hans Stuck saying to me, who are we going to have as a 3rd driver? And I said, you know, there's nobody that I would sort of trust driving with us. Not that they weren't as good as us, but we had such experience of Le Mans, as I did with Jackie Ickx. And I said the same to Jackie, because the year Jackie, his last race with me, I think was '83. And I remember he said, we need to have 3 drivers, don't we? He said, who shall we have? I said, but there's nobody, Jackie, that I would really want to be with. The only person I thought about was Hans Stuck. But at that point, he used to have a few incidents, Stucky did. He was always sideways. And I thought, Le Mans isn't won sideways, it's won by being not quite sideways. And so that was it. And so Jackie and I didn't have a 3rd driver, and then he retired anyway. And then, of course, then Porsche say, who would you like to join you? And I said, well, better have Hans Stuck.
Yes.
And they said, and Stucky told me a couple of years after that, he said, you know, Porsche put me with you because they thought that you'd straighten me out, because I was still a bit erratic. And he said they thought that you would be a good influence on my driving or whatever. And I always thought that rather amusing. It took him a couple of years to tell me, but by then we'd improved.
So there you are in the 962, the only Brit with 2 German co-drivers, against, I think, 4 Jaguars.
Yes.
A Sauber, I think Sauber Mercedes.
Yeah.
Courage
Yeah.
as well, of course.
Yep.
Pretty dangerous. I understand the Courage Mercedes, they withdrew after practice. I think they'd had a devastating, I think it was a Spa or a Monza, where things had gone very badly wrong with tyre explosion, and then at Le Mans the same thing occurred.
Yeah.
So it was really a battle royal between you and Great Britain with the Jaguar.
That's right. Well, it was, and it was one heck of a race, I must say. And of course, Porsche had it pretty much locked down into how fast we had to go, and what the fuel consumption should be in a perfect world, and all this sort of thing. And that's really, what we did. But for some reason, they put in a third driver.
Ludwig now leads for Porsche, with Dumfries second for Jaguar. But again, no panic, I would have thought, because again, they can't go on like that and not run out of fuel if they keep on driving at that sort of rate.
And I never bothered to ask. I thought, well, Porsche always do things which are right. But it's funny, I find you lose a sort of a control of the team. There's the two of you can be the pair that dominate, but when the third person, it's like they're not part of the team. I never said that to Ludwig, and ever. I mean, I did afterwards a bit, but at the time, it was never anything that really bothered me. But it did cross my mind, and because I'd never driven with three drivers. I did obviously in the 512 in the very first time because they needed drivers that brought money. But in this case, it was just down to us, and we did have a heck of a race until.
Had Klaus a lot of experience with Porsche before?
He did have quite a lot. Yes, I think he drove for Joest, and I think he'd won it before. But I can say it now because it's at least 20 years later. But I think Klaus, as much as I liked him and admire him and all he did, I mean, he was a hell of a driver, but he wasn't as good a teammate for some reason. He was more, I would say he was a little more interested in Klaus Ludwig winning the race.
And what's this? It's the Porsche! The Porsche is slowing! It's Klaus Ludwig!
Do you think
It couldn't
be anything to do with the fact that he was going so hard and using so much fuel?
I think you might have read that right. I think that in fact we could have a situation where Ludwig has stayed out perhaps one lap too many, and he may very well be out of fuel now. It's absolutely critical that he gets that car back to the pits, because if he doesn't, that's it. There will be a Porsche out. But meanwhile, it's losing a lot of time.
He can coast on the downhill bits and possibly drive it on the starter motor while the battery lasts on the other bits. But I think, as you say, I think he's done one lap too many, all gone a bit too hard, one or the other.
He's a small pocket-sized battleship, but Hans Stilk and Derek Bell are very much bigger chaps, and I wouldn't want to be telling them about it, not even over the radio.
Yes. This is losing a lot of valuable time. It's made the pits, at least. There they go, the Porsche mechanics in overalls to match the car. And one of them hurriedly talking to Klaus and asking him what's the problem. And he says, fuel, no fuel. Then
he's not going to be a very popular man.
Well, now that, of course, means that the lead Jaguar will pull away, because the other Porsches were nothing like so close to it. This was the one that was biting the Jaguar's ankles. Jaguars have ankles, I suppose they must do. And so it's pulling away now and building a nice big cushion. From a Jaguar point of view, it's the right Porsche that has overrun this fuel problem.
And now he's got a lot of ground to pick up, and that car is going to have to be driven with, should we say, one eye on the fuel gauge, certainly, but it's going to be absolutely flat out from here on in.
Ludwig wasn't going to get the sort of pat on the back that I think he had hoped for, and he certainly didn't this particular year, because he sort of ran out of petrol.
So fuel cost you the race.
Yes.
I think this race, Le Mans 88, goes down as one of the closest finishes ever.
It'll be significant to see whether the number 17 car, which has got to make up time, pulls away now from the leading car.
He must have lost at least a lap with that misjudgment over fuel.
But there's no more than the odd pit stop in it.
This is going to go down as one of the great Le Mans in history.
I think you were behind the Jaguar by less than 200 metres.
Yes.
And I read that there was only 1.5 litres of fuel left in the 962.
Is that so?
1.5 litres of fuel.
Well, you know more than I do. I just remember, we had the race basically in the bag, and it all went wrong when Klaus tried to do that extra lap, although he doesn't really admit it, but he does. So,
were you aware that the Jaguar was struggling at the time?
Not at all, no.
Because apparently one of the two Jaguars had gone out with a gearbox problem. that had been shared with the other Jaguars. So I believe the winning car, when the gearbox started to vibrate, I think it was Jan Lammers or whoever was driving, very smartly got it in fourth gear. And I think the latter part of the race, they drove it only in fourth gear.
Did they really?
And managed, I think at the pit stop, I don't know how they managed to slip the clutch and get out the pits,
No.
but they got out in fourth gear somehow. And of course, you guys were hunting that car down, looking for what would have been your sixth Le Mans win, but one of the most exciting, one of the closest finishes, but just not quite enough to gas in the tank.
No, not at all, not at the right time anyway. So Klaus was, we certainly gave him a hard time. And when he eventually got back to the pits, Stuckey said he's not damn well getting in again. So I thought, well, he's German, he can say what he can. He get away with it, I'm not going to be rude, but yes. But it was one of those things. I mean, and I guess it's happened many times and will happen again. But with modern technology, they know to the ounce just how you're getting on with consumption.
Absolutely. And did you have any means of knowing how much fuel was in your car at the time?
Generally speaking, during the race, yes. I mean, you knew you could do, I would say, 13 laps. And I mean, the amazing story, which I'm not going to go into because it just takes too long, but prior to that, we had to do, if you were going to go fast, you could only do 11 laps on a tank full. If you went a bit slower, you could do 12, and if you went a bit slower, you could do 13. And then you had to figure out before the race which format you're going to go in for, because if you did 13, you were going to do fewer stops. And one stop could be a matter of 4 minutes. So did you want to lose that benefit of getting an extra 4 minutes? And then you go, do I want to take the chance of running out? And this was certainly in our minds, and we'd had this before, so it wasn't the first year. And then, of course, on the dash, I don't think anybody really knew, but on the dashboard, above sort of the rev counter, there was a little dial, and it was the size of a shilling. And it would tell you what your actual raw readout was of fuel, how much fuel you'd used so far in the race. So you knew that that's what you should, that's what you should be at a certain point of laps. And then in your own mind, you had to figure out, was it going to do 11 laps, 12 laps, or 13 laps on that amount of the fuel that you had. As I told you, you'd be going, much slower if you did 13 laps, but you'd have 2 pit stops saved or 1 pit stop saved. So you had to work all that out. And you're going down Mulsanne Straight, and in the middle of the steering wheel, there was a thing the size of a cigarette packet on there. And it would have 1 to 13 down the side, and across the top, 11, 12, 13, which was the laps you could try and get in that period. And then you, as the drivers, we would try and do our best. And then you had to figure out that as you came down the Mulsanne Straight, at a certain point that you picked, which might have been the Mulsanne restaurant, as you got there, how much fuel you used in 1 lap to get there, and what your fuel consumption.
It gave you a delta.
It gave you, and you had that every lap, and you had to look at it. And then as you came down, you'd be looking down, going, "Oh my God, I'm using more fuel than I thought." As you come out of Terre Rouge, so you'd back off a little bit and get a toe off a 911. I mean, it was like that all through the race, trying to get it spot on the whole way. And some you win and some you don't.
Absolutely. And in terms of top speed at Le Mans, running the long tail?
But it was well over 200.
Well over 200 miles an hour.
But it was so stable, that was the astonishing. It was the most amazing car. And as we've talked about even here today, the width of the wheel arches, and we put narrower tyres on and taller tyres, which gave you more tunnel. But then at Le Mans, you didn't want extra tunnel, you wanted less tunnel. Hence the front often was not concave, whereas in the 956s in the early bit, the 956 had a concave portion under your pedals, which gave you extra downforce, which was flat when you went to Le Mans, so you had better flow through the air.
So this is all about minimum drag.
Yeah, that's right.
Less ground effect, more top end speed.
Yeah.
We look back at Group C now, but I think it's as a golden era of sports car racing, perhaps one of arguably the greatest eras of sports car racing. But the 956 when it arrived, and Group C was groundbreaking.
Yes.
If you look at what had come before,
yeah.
And in many respects, what has come afterwards all comes back to Group C.
It does. The weirdest thing is, I never did a lap with the 956 against the 936. Now you could say, well, what lap did you do the year before? It's irrelevant because tyres improve in a year, and you're going to have different tyres for different types of body, with more ground effect. So I don't know how our time. Porsche might well know, but they never told us about it.
No.
How much quicker ground effect was. I remember Jochen, me, and Jackie got in particularly. Got in testing at Paul Ricard in the winter, at the end of in the spring, and they said, okay, off you go, and we just literally drove ground effect cars for the first time.
A revelation.
A revelation.
Absolutely. And then I guess the end of Group C was the Kramer, which was the first time I saw you.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, well, the convertible.
The convertible, yeah.
Horrible word, convertible. But yes, I mean, it was just a chance to do another race in a Porsche 962.
Why not?
And why not, And I mean, it actually was really quite good.
And then the last Le Mans, was it with Justin in the Harrods McLaren?
Oh yeah, yes, that was pretty spectacular. To drive that, to finish third on Father's Day was outstanding. Yeah, I mean, he drove so well, and it was terrifying. I don't know if you might get round to this one day, but I mean, I just remember in the night, I brought the car in, the track was awash as it had been nearly since 10 o'clock at night. We were in the top three all the time. And I remember, I knew Le Mans pretty well. You'll never know where the water is excessively, but you just have a feel around it. Your body knows when it's going to feel certain movements going around on the, after our nage on that very fast bit back, which is pretty dangerous, really, at the speeds we were doing. And I remember thinking as I went to hand it over to him at one stage in the night, and we always used to say a few words, when you're at, watch out, there's an excessive amount of water at Mulsanne or whatever, something where it's excessive, there's something special to look out for. And I looked at him, and he was 23 or 24, and I looked down in the cockpit, and it's my son, and I went, I don't know what to tell him. And he's looking at me, please, Dad, tell me something. I mean, you could see it on his face, and I went, it's very wet. And I just shut the door, and he drove up the track, he drove off, and I went, oh my God, I might have sent my son to his death. I mean, honestly, it was a horrible moment. What can I do? I'm not saying, come back, son, I'll take over, But some of it was tough in those conditions. The dry didn't bother me, because we drove in
Wet at night at Le Mans.
1992, we drove a car for Porsche Cars Great Britain. Justin and I and Tiffany Dell. And actually we had quite a good race, but of course we didn't have the right tyres. And we went for a sort of a low downforce configuration, which wasn't actually the way to go that year, particularly because it was wet. But that was the first time I drove with Justin, and then the time with the McLaren was hideous. But we finished third, and it was Father's Day. It was a bit special.
Yeah, what a nice way to finish Le Mans.
Yeah.
But chassis number 10, second at Le Mans,
yes.
The one that got away.
Yes.
Got away by 200 metres.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was all right.
Still Le Mans.
Still Le Mans.
Still Le Mans.
That's what Le Mans is about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you win every time, it would be easy.
Yeah, they'd all go home anyway.
They'd all go home.
Yeah. Come in second a couple of times. Good, Derek, that was really good. And you go, you must be joking. It was hell, really. But, we drove hard. But all within those, with our own inbuilt sort of rules. And it was great. It's phenomenal. I mean, you think of the period I had with Jackie X, and then, with Stefan Beloff, and then with Hans Stuck, and then Al Holbert joining. I mean, Al Holbert joined. Al Holbert drove with me in the Lohrenbrow car in America, and we won Daytona 2 years in a row. And those same 2 years, we won Le Mans with Al Holbert, but Hans Stuck drove with us here. And in America, we had an American. I mean, four 24 hours in a row, we won. 2 there and 2 here. Nobody's ever done that. And they don't even talk about that. But it's only talk about it anyway, isn't it?
It's a hell of a career, Derek.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I won't complain at all. Thank you very much.
And you honour us by coming to talk to us today about the 962 and this amazing era.
Yeah. We were lucky.
We were lucky, and I was lucky to see you at Le Mans.
Yeah.
And you inspired me, and I know you've inspired many others to try and do what Derek Bell did at Le Mans, and just to drive at Le Mans.
I mean, you could have done it too in one of these, really. You know?
I don't know. As someone said to me, you know, what would have been the best era to being a driver? And for me, it's now, because I've had the privilege of driving some of the great older cars, the greatest pre-war cars, the greatest cars from the 50s, the 60s. I've driven them at Le Mans, I've driven them at Goodwood, I've driven a 962, I've driven a 512, I've yet to try a 917, so there's always something yet to come. And then in my own modest way, 4 times at Le Mans, you know, lucky to do that. And I now look at the kids that are driving at Le Mans today, and now, of course, the cars are reliable. It's a flat-out sprint in every class for 24 hours. And I look at that and I think, could I do that now? Well, I don't think I'd want to do it now, but I'm really glad that I did it when I did it. And I'm glad that Le Mans is still Le Mans. It is the greatest motor race in the world.
It is, yes.
And absolutely. You won it 5 times, and almost in 962 chassis 10.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Maybe the one that got away, but
it doesn't matter. It's still a major part of history.
It's all part of history.
There you go. Bloody beautiful. Look at that. God. Wonderful, isn't it? It's all right there. Do you realize how everything is just there? It's just astonishing, isn't it? It feels just like home. It's my greatest relationship because it never answers back. Oh, that echo as you shut the door down. I mean, and if that door shut, it's quite a different sound. God, that's amazing, isn't it? That is just fantastic. Yeah. Isn't it amazing, though? You just get in and fit like that. Yeah. Can you imagine old Stucky? And no wonder he was a bit like that in here. I'm happy to stay in here, actually. No, hold on. I know it's right back. There, it's on it now. But so, I mean, that's perfect for me. Isn't it amazing? Everything is just there.
All in the right place.
Yeah.
And where?
It was bloody difficult. I mean, here you are going along. There's a readout here underneath your fist. And remember, the car is moving like that all the time. And you're doing up to 200, 220. You're going past, and as you go by, meanwhile you're trying to overtake people as well. And you're looking down and you're going, hold on, oh shit, I'm using too much fuel. And then you'd have to back off and follow a 911 all the way down into Mulsanne, that sort of thing. Well, I mean, at the end of it, it's the perfection of it, isn't it? I mean, it's just, the car is perfect. There's no car that was better. I mean, during that era. I mean, this is the ultimate car. I mean, this actual car is the actual ultimate car. The Jag was very, very fast, but they were driving it like nobody's business. This car you had to drive with perfection, and the Jag was just an animal. It looked like it to me, you know, and they were driving the pants off it. I mean, they crashed occasionally and that sort of thing, and it struck me as a bit of a violent car. I never drove it, unfortunately, but because of the type of engine that this had, it just flowed. It was very progressive, and it seemed like the Jaguar wasn't, although it was a stunning car. And I was offered that drive at the beginning of that program, and I turned it down. They said, would you come and work for Jaguar? So I got the letter saying, you know, would there be any chance of me joining Jaguars? And of course, for a Brit, it was a wonderful opportunity. But, you know, I don't want to have to go through this development. I've done the development for the last 4 years with Porsche, and I'm very happy with it and the results and the teammates. And there could be nowhere like it. And it is fantastic. Just to get back in it again. I mean, I've used the phrase over the years, it's like an old girlfriend, but I have to be very careful. But it is, isn't it? It's something that you're in love with for so long. Well, okay, all that's left now is to open that door up, and just let me take it for a spin down the Gloucester Road. How about that? It would cause a stir, wouldn't it? Oh, God.